Hello, and welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Currently in kind of a super session of playing with some water-soluble oil paints. This is the third one today. I like to kind of do more than one in one sitting, mainly because once I set the paints out, I really have a thing about letting it go to waste. And yeah, just like having the flow and want to experiment with different things. And I find that my paintings get looser as I go along. Anywho, that being said, 5x7 universal primed linen Centurion on panel, and I am using a mixture of different brands. I'm playing within my earth tones and just going fast and loose and having fun. So I think I have some black on this brush, and I put out some yellow ochre. So I think I'm just going to inadvertently get a green to start taking place, but I'm just gonna push paint around and let my scene develop. Every one of these videos I always mention the oil painting masters that have influenced me and people that I would recommend checking out. Dennis Sheehan, Stuart Davies, two super huge tonalist masters that are painting right now. There's also a lot of other ones, but they don't have videos out there. So, just making sure to give credit where credit is due. And that being said, just seeing what occurs. So I have found with the water soluble, if I use too much water in the beginning, it doesn't seem to want to take subsequent layers on top of that. It almost wants to kind of wash things off. My idea here is just kind of scrubbing in, hiding all the white, and then from there, letting things happen. Earth palette wise, I think yellow ochre creeped onto it inadvertently. Just grabbed the wrong tube, because I have that and the raw sienna. And when I look around, actually the raw sienna and the burnt sienna have very similar bands on the tubes. And if something's in a certain location, I kind of just reach for it and grab it. And then if it gets onto the palette, it's like, okay, well, now we're using that. So I think that kind of attests to the fact that I'm really not too worried about the color itself. Just worried for the tonal values and textures. With all these videos, you're welcome to follow along. And of course, you're welcome to sign your own name to them. And you have my express permission to sell anything you do whenever you follow along with one of my videos. I want you guys to be successful, have money for art supplies, and just have fun. And nothing feels better than gifting one of your works of art to a friend, to a family member, to a charity auction. Nothing feels better than that. And selling art also feels absolutely fantastic. So if you get to experience that, I mean, hopefully that'll happen. I put out some titanium white. In the past two paintings that I filmed today, that I did today, I didn't put any white out. Reason being is when I first got these tubes in, there was supposed to be white in the order, but that didn't happen, and I had to contact the company I ordered from, which is always a hassle, but they made things right. And anyway, yeah, so I originally experimented with just wiping back and using the white of the different surfaces. And Stuart Davies, Dennis Sheehan, the two gentlemen that I mentioned, whenever I watch them, and I'll kind of just refer to Stuart Davies, he will wipe back and use the white of the panel that he's painting on. And if white does get used, it's kind of in the clouds in a soft, bushy manner, fluffy manner. Let's put some raw sienna out. Oh, I didn't put out raw sienna. See, I put burnt sienna because, to me, the colors that they use right around the tops are pretty much the same. So now we have some raw sienna out. I just absolutely love the earth tones in oils. It's just, I don't know, they're really just something that I really enjoy. With tonalism, maybe that's what I'll blab about for this video while I experiment and put colors in. With tonalism, there's like a lot of kind of a little bit back and forth about like kind of what tonalism is. There was a Facebook page that I used to be, very involved in, but their definition of tonalism was kind of too pushed into an idea, and it caused a lot of like contention, and there was just like a lot of that online arguing of what tonalism is, and just a lot of people had difficulty within that group and that communication, which was a shame, because I think trying to maintain a group around an idea and having to define that idea had caused issues. I'm trying to like not to be negative or anything like that, trying to just think of ways to kind of explain ideas and thought processes with tonalism, where some people would say figures aren't tonalist, but you could look at Whistler's mother, the painting of Whistler's mother. One of Whistler's is looked at as one of the people that defining tonalists. So there you go. You have an example of people within it. Traditionally, you don't see people within historical tonalist paintings. You'll often see maybe remnants of society or farmland ideas of them. But there's obviously exceptions to every idea or rule. A lot of people will just paint something monochromatic, and people will argue if that's tonalist or not. And remember, at the end of the day, with this video and this blabbing that I just decided to blab about, it honestly doesn't matter. Like, just remember that throughout this whole blabbing. It really doesn't matter what something falls between and what people are classifying things as. Just like the whole different musical movements, if something's like hip hop or rap or R&B, it really doesn't matter. It's just something that's used to kind of describe something or kind of place it within a spot in history, I guess. But anyway, continuing at the blab, there's one fantastic article that has the 12 or 13 aspects of tonalist paintings, and that you can find, I think, on artsy.net. I think that was the website. But for me, tonalism is kind of the mood and the reason I think I went on this little story, that the earth colors give me a vibe and a mood that is kind of, I guess, nostalgic. And I'm not sure why, but the word nostalgic shows up in the article, kind of defining the 12 or 13 aspects from that one author of tonalism. So he had it in regards to how things were, I guess, essentially in America before the land was torn by the Civil War, before, homesteads were destroyed, things like that, that there was almost a nostalgia to prior to that time period. But obviously, I wasn't alive during the Civil War, before or after it, so there's no nostalgia there for me. But a lot of the paintings are often from Long Island, where I grew up. So maybe there's kind of the nostalgia tied to where I grew up. Who knows? And obviously, needless to say, there's a lot of stuff that, with the Civil War needed to happen because of what was taking place. But art movement wise, prior to the Civil War, there was a lot of the Hudson River Valley movement, which was, I think, kind of, I don't want to use the word, because the word is often used in like a negative way now, like a nationalist type movement, where there was kind of pride in the landscape of America, in the wilderness and the undiscovered, unexplored, and just that kind of beauty there. While the European landscape painters were painting explored areas, I think that was kind of the nationalist aspect of the Hudson River Valley movement. Then there was also the fact that the Hudson River Valley movement was kind of idyllic. Is that the correct pronunciation? Where everything is painted beautifully and on point and very detailed. So there was that prior to Civil War, and then Civil War. Then after that, there's the more expressive brushstrokes. There's the memory of scenes, symbolic of scenes and not specific areas. There's a whole bunch. I know this is very rambly. I feel like my on-camera talking hasn't been super on point lately. I had mentioned in the beginning of today's series that winter break just started, and it's cold. We had off today. We were supposed to have work. It was a half day, but with the freeze and the Arctic blast and all that stuff coming down, Louisiana's just not built and prepared for that. And I think they're pretty much just like, why would we have kids down in Louisiana wait at a bus stop in 20-degree weather for a half a day? And we inherently built in days, like every school system builds in days for whenever they need to potentially take off, so they have enough hours for the year. Kind of like, if you have hurricane weather, if you have freeze down here. Up in New York, if you have snow, you have hours built in for things where just transportation is impossible, or it's just dangerous to do so. I'll tell you right now, nobody down here in Louisiana knows how to drive during inclement weather when there's freezes. The reason I say that is one of my first freezes when I moved down here. I actually had a doctor's appointment that day, and my mother was driving with me. We had seen, unfortunately, some accidents on the way to the doctor's. But that's everywhere. Even up in New York, when I lived up there, everybody has slid out at least once, which is scary. Just taking a blue shop rag. Should be talking more about my materials and what I'm doing than just blabbing, but I hope you enjoy. A lot of the masters that I mentioned earlier, I'll talk about how they'll have a rag where, yeah, Percy, yeah, how the masters would have a rag for things. It's funny, we use paper towels, right? Watercolor, I think they would sometimes mention blotter paper historically, or more often bits of bread for watercolor, for dabbing stuff up and for rubbing things out. And I'm curious why towels weren't mentioned as much with oil painters in books. Where what I mean by that is, if you look up, I don't know, I'm going to use David Leffel. He has his online school, Bright Light Fine Art, and he has his in-person teachings, and they have kind of a list of things to bring, what palette, colors, what brand of paper towel was recommended, things like that. But prior to the advent of paper towel, were oil painters using blotter paper as well, or were they just using handkerchiefs, cotton towels, linen? I'm not sure. I'm curious what the masters had used. It's probably just a moot point. I'm just curious. There's especially like the staining aspects of oil, where if I wore a long sleeve shirt and got oil on it, it was just destroyed. So I wonder what they used. I gotta remember to label this one as super rambly. Percy Pooh, what's up? Percy's trying to climb on my lap now. Earlier it was Hammy. Now the Pooh is trying to climb. Let's see, I'm going to stand up and take a look and see how things are going. Painting flat does give a little bit of issues. And painting sitting down gives some issues because you're not really getting that distant look at what you're doing. And it's funny, thinking back to life drawing and painting classes, there's a certain level of stamina you need to develop, not so much for like standing the whole time that you're painting from the still life of the model, but the arm up and out and holding the brush at the end, kind of like a wand. You can see my hand not even in here, how far I am from this, that I'm not holding it. So I'm letting the scene create itself. I have really nothing in mind. Obviously, the trees on the left and the trees on the right are being developed, but just exploring back and forth different options and ideas. And eventually, these things will come together quicker and quicker, especially during this break. Bought a whole bunch of these panels in preparation for it. Having working until the day or two before Christmas Eve, we get 2 weeks off for the break, which means that we really don't have to worry too much about preparation for the holidays because we're at work. And then I think teachers get about, or schools will usually kind of do about 2 weeks off. So we're off until the 9th, I think. Put out some more black. I think a lot of these will benefit from some playful glazing at a later date. There should be no issues using traditional oils on top of these water-soluble oils. I have read that people might use these for an underpainting, so we're all good there. I have a few different other art ideas for the break as well. I need to do some darkroom stuff. I just haven't done that in a while. The setup can obviously be a little time consuming, because you're mixing the chemicals and getting things prepared. And I'm pretty sure my fixative is spent, so I have to mix that bottle up again. Also want to experiment with decoupage, of all things. I'm curious how watercolor paper will work with a Mod Podge, just being applied to maybe glass. I also want to play with some of the rice paper that I have. It's a few different ideas. I went very heavy with the black. Raw umber might have suited it better. I wonder if we could push in both directions. At the moment I grab some white with this. This is the titanium white. With whites, if you Google, a different oil color whites, they'll usually have a list of the uses of the different ones, which one's probably best for mixing, which one's more opaque. I do recall kind of just something with titanium white where it was watching out that anything you mix it with will make it cooler, so it might recede warm sunsets. So I'm not sure about that. I think Virgil Elliott said that zinc white, anything with zinc, would cause issues with cracking. But once again, I don't have his book, the traditional oil painting. I kind of just see that on the Facebook page that he posts. I don't know, do I want to put a white sun in, or white moon? From what I recall, the white always seems to take longer to dry. Like some of the pigments, like burnt umber, will dry pretty quickly. I'm not sure why. I might be making that up. I think we'll end this one in a moment. I hope you enjoyed. I've been just using this little inking device to scrape my name in. But if you watch this, you made it this far, I'm curious if this type of palette invokes a sense of nostalgia in you as well. If it's because of the old master paintings that kind of faded in their other colors and the browns came through further. Is it just that the brown color has just a way? I'm curious what you think. So like I said earlier, that one attribute was the nostalgia for a time period prior to war and devastation. But for us not having lived through that, what nostalgia is it now invoking in, I guess, contemporary tonalism? Could nostalgia just be like a fleeting memory of a sunset or something from a childhood? I like just stamping around with that. All right, so I'm going to end the painting there. Hopefully in a few days these will get to the point where they're dry and I can glaze over them, and we'll see how everything looks. I'm amassing quite a pile of these, which I've always mentioned, oils take up so much room, so this has just been super helpful working in this size due to that. So I'll probably have a lot of glazing experiment videos coming up in a few days. All right, y'all take care. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.